and say, welcome everybody. It's Monday, September the 4th, or Tuesday, September the 5th, depending on where you are in time and space. I'm Jim Mansky. Joy usually sits right here, and I think she's coming down, but she was feeling a little bit exhausted earlier. So we'll see if she rallies and wants to come down. She was torn, but it's super, super hot this afternoon, and it just kind of wiped us both out a little bit. And today's class is on acknowledge, acknowledge, acknowledge. We'll talk more about that as we go. If you're here for the first time, we want to extend a especially warm welcome to you. It's a practice group in nonviolent communication. So we really focus a lot on practice. It's not like a webinar where I do a lot of talking and teaching and so forth. I try to speak the least amount of words possible in order to convey what we need to do so we can start practicing. And then we debrief the practices and see what we can learn together. And the way we practice is we do what are called the 3 modes of nonviolent communication, which are self-empathy or self-compassion or self-connection, something about how you might use nonviolent communication just with yourself. And then the 2 relational ways of using nonviolent communication, the listening part, which we call empathy, we'll be focusing on that today, and the honesty part, the speaking part, which we call vulnerability or honesty. So you'll have a chance to practice all 3 of those modes as we continue today. And we'll start with a self-connection exercise. And self-connection exercises they're kind of like guided meditations, but I'm not trying to change a state or try to help you relax or anything like that. It's more like mindfulness. I want to bring attention to what you already are experiencing. So I'm not trying to change your experience. I'm rather inviting you to notice the experience that you're already having and bring a quality of consciousness and mindfulness and presence to the experience that you're already having. And as we go, I might ask you some questions about things that you might remember or things that you might hope for and so forth. But everything we do here is completely optional, and you can choose to just ignore this exercise if it doesn't work for you, or if you don't like it, something like that. So let's just start by noticing what's actually happening. Here you are sitting in front of a device, whether it's a computer or a phone or an iPad or some other kind of device. And you look at this, you're probably looking at a screen or listening to a recording. You just bring some awareness to what's actually happening in your life and notice that you're doing it. And then ask yourself why. Why are you doing this? There's 10 million things. It's a holiday in Canada and the United States today, and maybe other places. Why would you come to an NVC practice group? What needs are you hoping to meet by being here? One way to help get connected to the needs is to just ask yourself, what's important to me right now? What's important to me about being with a group of people, practicing nonviolent communication? And then just if you'd like to explore what's happening in your body, you can close your eyes. Sometimes it's helpful. You don't have to close your eyes, but if you're comfortable closing your eyes, it can support being able to tune in to what's going on in your body. And as you close your eyes, the world seems to disappear, at least the visual part of the world. And that most people express that when they do that, they become more aware of things like sounds. So just listen to your environment. Notice that as you listen, you have this, you're setting this intention to listen, and you might suddenly start thinking. That seems just so natural and common. You set your attention for one thing and then you might get distracted by thought. So you notice that, and then gently coach yourself to go back simply to listening. And it might happen again. There you are listening. Maybe you can hear the birds in the background on my computer, microphone. Maybe you hear things in your own environment, and then suddenly you're thinking about breakfast or lunch or dinner or what happened yesterday or what the plans are for today. Again, you just notice that you're thinking. This is an important skill in nonviolent communications. Just keep observing. You don't have to try to change your thinking or change your feeling. Rather, just observe it, be present. And then shift your attention from the world that you're listening to, including the sound of my voice, and instead notice what's going on in your body. You might notice something that you label pain, like a headache or muscle ache, sore throat, healing wound, or something like that. Just notice that's the sensations associated with that. Or maybe you notice something pleasant. Maybe you just had a sip of water. You notice what it's like to quench your thirst. Maybe you had some food. You feel full. It's a pleasant feeling. Unless you eat too much, and then it might be, you might have pain from too much food. So just scan your body and be aware of pleasure and pain in your body without judgment, rather just noticing and naming your own experience. Again, your mind might wander. You might become aware of thinking instead of the exercise. Again, you just notice that and just move back with intention. Oh, I'm scanning for pleasure and pain right now. Okay. Go back to the body scan. Sometimes it's helpful to do it in one direction or another, like starting with your toes and going to the top of your head, or vice versa. Or maybe you have your own way of attuning to your body and these sensations. You may also be aware of emotions. Emotions like sadness, happiness, frustration, anger, hurt, disgust, love. We have a almost infinite variety on our palette of emotions. What are you feeling right now in terms of emotion? You can notice it first. And then if it has a name, you can name it. If it doesn't have a name, just stay with noticing it. And try acknowledging these sensations and emotions for yourself. So you just say something like I'll just model what it might look like. Only I'm going to do it. I'm going to do my inside voice outside. So I just notice what's going on in my body. And I notice a kind of a longing, a pain in my heart. So I say to myself, "Oh, Jim, is there something in your heart that's just hurting a little bit right now?" So notice I said what I was noticing with a quality of gentleness and warmth. The way you might talk to a young child that just fell and skinned their knee. Just acknowledge your own experience of sensations and emotions. So be quiet for a minute or two while you practice that. And then check in again with what's important to you. At this point of the call, we've been here now for a few minutes. You might have more clarity about why you're here. So again, the first step is just to notice what's important to you. Name it for yourself, and then acknowledge it. Acknowledge your own experience to yourself. So for example, I tune in. I say, what's important to me about being here today? It's about contribution, community. So then I say with a warm voice to myself, "Oh, Jim, contribution and community are so important to you." And just see if there's another layer that comes up, or if there's just silence, peace. One last piece of exploration to try before we end the exercise is to consider from now on. We're planning to be here for a couple of hours. What are your hopes? What do you hope happens between now and 2 hours from now? What are your wishes, your desires? So for me, I notice that I want to have fun and I want to connect with my friends. I want flow and ease. So I would just say, maybe pick one of those things and acknowledge it for myself. So Jim, you really love it when your groups have flow and ease. So now you can try it. Notice the wish and then acknowledge it with warmth. Your eyes have been closed. I invite you to open them if you want to, although you can snooze through the whole class if you'd like to. It's up to you. And I've managed to create some small groups for you to now go practice. honesty and empathy in the small group. And so the idea here is we'll do this for about 15 minutes. And I'd like to invite you to just do a round and say what your name is and where you're from. And maybe one thing that you savored during the last week. Last week we talked about savoring. So maybe you just make a brief report about one thing that you savored last week. So it might sound like, my name's Jim, I live in Maui, and I savored, one thing that I savored this week was the feeling of light rain
Susan, this,
falling on my body. Just gently pricking my body with moisture. And when you finish that round, then talk about this exercise that you just did, this mindful exploration of observations, feelings, needs, and requests, and acknowledgement. And if you do something else, that's also fine. It's your group. You get to do what you want to do. All the groups are 3, except for one group of 2. And so if somebody, oops, I'm going to move this one person who's ended up alone. I'm going to put you into the group with other folks, so you're no longer alone. If you end up in a room alone, just wait. Some of the internet connections are slower than others. It might take a minute or 2 to get hooked up. So just be patient and continue the practice until then. So I'll see you all back here. You'll see a little timer in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. And there'll be 1 minute at the end. So we'll see you back here in 15 minutes. Announcement.
I have a question. This is Susan.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Can you hang on to it for a few minutes?
I can. Yeah, you bet. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe write it down so you can make sure you remember it. Welcome back, everybody. I know you didn't go anywhere, but for some reason we always say that on Zoom. Welcome back. And I didn't go anywhere. I actually had a chance to check in with some folks who arrived after you guys were already in your small group, and I got to hear the savoring of 3 people. And my experience was, as they savored their experience, I got to savor their experience. So it awakened the similar feeling. I don't know if it was the same kind of feelings, but they were pleasant feelings for me, just to walk with somebody as they shared what their experience, some of their experience over the last week. And so I really got to see the power of sharing gratitude, sharing appreciation, and how healthy that is for me. And I see Siva has her hand up, and I'll go there in just a moment. But if you'd like to share anything about your experience in this small group or during the exercise, that would be the first thing. And then if there are questions or comments after that, then I'd be open to hearing anything before we dive into the lesson. Siva and then Vida. Oops, I think you're still on mute, Siva.
so you muted me. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna be fast. What I savored was that I went today is a holiday in the United States. We tend to put our holidays on Mondays so that we have a 3-day weekend. And so this is Monday, honoring laborers, people who labor, which is whatever that means. And my husband and I are part of the Peninsula Multi-Faith Coalition, and we get together in this park and we tell each other how we are the same rather than how we are different. And the same is our connection to God. and that we are godly and all that. But the thing I want to share is when I was exiting the park, there was a lady who wanted to know who are these people? And everybody seemed not to be interested in teaching until she saw me and my husband. So, quick story. She's very spiritual. It was through spirituality that she feels she cured herself of cancer at the age of the United States, at the age of 39, when she and her husband were in the United States. And how did that happen? Well, she went to this spiritual place, which I had also been to, and she learned two things has the highest spirituality, and that is love and gratitude. And everything else has a lower energy by a big distance, measurable. So not only love is not enough, gratitude is not enough, but the combination. And the first time she started with a journal, she couldn't think of anything to be grateful for. And she forced herself and she wrote down one thing. And the second day, it was easier because she repeated the first thing and then one more. And now she has a journal with too many to count.
Nice. Isn't that wonderful? How they kind of can stack up, and one gratitude can lead to another. That happened to me during this check-in with folks. You know, they would say something and it would remind me of something to savor. I think that's the power of community as well. Thanks,
Right.
Siva. Vida, and then Rob.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here after a long gap. Yeah, I was longing to be with you, Jim and Jory and the group. Yeah, I think one thing I've noticed in the group sharing is that when it comes to sharing about Xavier, that I enjoyed doing that. I somehow chose experience where I had anxiety and bit of a panic situation that I lived mostly last week, and then that affected me subsequently 2-3 nights, and somehow I ventured into sharing it and being with that, and then just be with it. And sharing doesn't mean that I only need to have a pleasant experiences or something excited about. I think I've ventured myself courageously to share that unpleasantness or stuckness, anxiety, or that whatever subsequent thing. So I honored it, and then I gave a space to it. I think the so-called world teaches us to be only be with the pleasure, just move towards, comforting or soothing or all that. I think I somehow venturing myself into just be with all that is, and I just wanted to bring this up.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you're going straight for the PhD program there, Vida. Yes, we can even savor painful experiences because they're coming from the same energy of needs, and that we can savor. Rob.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we just had a really fun savoring. We love the oceans. Last week I swam in the Pacific, one person swam in the Atlantic, and one person swam in the Indian Ocean. So I was like, whoa, fantastic. So
how sweet.
Thank you, Mother Earth.
Yeah, and you've shared a common experience. It looks like there's 3 different oceans, but it really is one planet. So one ocean, you all shared the ocean together. Yeah.
Same water. Yeah.
Same water. Yeah. Same planet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
Rob.
and I sent you a request in the chat. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. And anybody else? I think Susan had a question. Susan? Are you still here?
Yeah, it's more just, I think I found my answer was, I'm new to this group in BC somewhat. So when you speak about the directions when we go to the small group, I was wondering if it was ever put in the chat, but I did the closed caption and I saw where I can get the transcript. So I think I answered my own question.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay,
You're
thanks.
welcome. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what Susan's talking about, there's something on the bottom of your screen that looks like it says CC, just like closed captioning on your TV. And Zoom does a halfway decent job of actually capturing what we say and then putting it into the written word. I keep it on my screen. It's actually helps me to focus. And so it's a mindfulness technique for me to see what other people are saying. And sometimes it really helps me to connect. And so you can feel free to use that as well. Okay, anybody else have anything you want to share before we move into a little bit of a lesson and then more practice? You know what? I would like to hear one more person savor something from this past week since we talked about savoring. I would love to just savor one more thing to get us ready. Yeah, Aaron.
Well, I am savoring life itself. I went to an exhibit yesterday called Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away. And Auschwitz was a concentration camp, or there, a city, and then a concentration camp near there, where attempted genocide happened and about 1 million people were murdered. So it was pretty heavy experience to see the exhibit. There are many artifacts from it. But I also got present to gratitude for life itself.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. I'm really touched.
That probably wasn't in line with your request, but
No, I got it. I got the savoring. I got exactly. I mean, it worked for me. I don't know if it worked for others, but I got it. I got it. You know that and it's a similar thing happened to me with the fires here in Maui and other places. I know lots of places are burning, and that in the face of disaster, I can attune to the joy of living, and that I have the next breath. I mourn that not everybody who would like to keep breathing gets to keep breathing, but I can still celebrate my next breath because my next breath might come with an opportunity to serve and to connect. Yeah.
And you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And Janelle.
Hey, I was quite inspired when you asked for another example. So I hope you don't mind that there was 2 people, not 1. I noticed in the last week, so I had just a phone conversation with my daughter, and I was reflecting after it, going, what was the real connecting moment? And I could sit with it and really feel this one point where I shared something vulnerably and she spontaneously shared something back, and just how beautiful and rich that moment felt. And what I noticed, similar to, and I've forgotten who spoke first, said, the more I paid attention to those moments, the more I noticed when something made me uncomfortable and how quickly I skipped past it and connected into what the other person is asking of me or needing. And I became aware of that. And then I could go back and go, wow, look at that. I just skipped right over that discomfort. I just didn't connect with it. And when I went back and sat with it, it was so powerful to see what was sitting underneath it. And
Wow.
how often I have done that and start to make those small changes. So really powerful. Thank you.
Very powerful. Very powerful. And I'm really celebrating your insight to just notice how often we have this habit of skipping past the pain. And even in that noticing, there's something to savor. Oh, wow, I woke up to an old pattern. And I can see that I can make, from now on, I can make a different choice. Slow down, be with it, acknowledge something vulnerably, and that vulnerability is contagious in a positive way. Yeah. Thank you, Janelle.
Welcome.
Is that complete?
Yeah, I'm complete. Thank you. I love that. Vulnerability is contagious. That's
Yeah.
such wisdom.
Yeah, we have these things in our brain called mirror neurons. And these neurons are really at the root of our empathy skills. And I don't know that we've discovered mirror neurons in other animals yet. There probably other animals probably have them, but they're definitely in humans. And what a mirror neuron does is it has a specific function of noticing what other human beings are saying, doing, and feeling. And then our brain makes a representation of what's going on in their brain. And so that's the source of empathy. It's happening usually below the surface. We're not usually aware of it. When we're starting to learn something like NVC or other mindfulness techniques, we begin to awaken this skill and empower ourselves even more to use the natural abilities that we've been endowed with our neurology to deepen our experience of empathy, which is what we're going to focus on today. Today, it's the class is called Acknowledge, Acknowledge, Acknowledge. And I want to start with an acknowledgement, which is long before I learned nonviolent communication, Jory and I decided that we would sell our small business that we had. We found a buyer, and we wanted to retire from that business and to pursue peacemaking. And we took slightly parallel, but our paths slightly veered. And I took a mediation training with one particular person, and Jory took her mediation training with another person. But my mediation trainer was a woman named Cynthia Olson. And Cynthia, I think she's still around doing mediation training somewhere. But, you know, a trainer, if you're lucky, a trainer will say at least one thing that sticks with you for the rest of your life. And the thing, one of the things that stuck with me from Cynthia is the power of acknowledgement. And not only the power of acknowledgement, but the power it gives me when I remember the power of acknowledgement. And what I mean is this. She said, at least this is my memory of what she said. She said, if you're ever listening to somebody in a mediation or a conflict situation, and obviously that could be extend out to any other kind of a situation. If you're ever listening to somebody in a conflict situation and you don't know what to do, you have this sense of being lost, you have the sense of being frozen, of being confused or befuddled. Well, first notice that, but then simply acknowledge the last thing that you heard the other person say. Simply acknowledge the last thing that you heard another person say. So I thought that was really great advice. And so we started including that in our NVC training when we were talking about empathy. And we always start anything with nonviolent communication with motivation or purpose. Why would we want to empathize? Why would we want to reflect what we're hearing from another person, and what we nicknamed the 0 step? And so it's just talking about our purpose, getting clear on why we're doing whatever it is that we're doing, but then to just acknowledge that this is the first layer when we're listening to somebody, to acknowledge somebody's observations, feelings, and wishes. So we're going to do some practice with that today. And just to get clear, especially I know there's some new people here today. I'm really glad that you found us. I'm always mystified at how people find us, but I'm really glad when you do. From my understanding, the intention that Marshall Rosenberg brought us with nonviolent communication is to create a quality of connection that supports compassionate giving and receiving. Shortcut way of saying that is let's create a quality of connection that makes life more wonderful from now on. And to do that, we place our attention in the present moment with what's happening right now. We can't really heal the past. We can have a healing in the present, and we do that through empathy. And our focus is on OFNER. OFNER is the abbreviation for the 4 components of nonviolent communication: observation for O, F for feeling, N for need, R for requests. And so the goal is to focus more and more often, or oftener and oftener, on just those simple components rather than what our habit is, which is to focus on moral judgment of goodness and badness, rightness and wrongness, who deserves what, and so forth, that we've been very well trained to do. So this is a shift in focus, to focus on observations, feelings, needs, and requests. And we'll get practice to that today with acknowledgement. And when we do that, there's an automatic thing that seems to happen in the heart, which is we open outcome. We let go of demand energy because we're present. We're not thinking about the future. And so the future becomes an adventure that's yet to be enjoyed. And we're open to find out what might happen. And we might even have some ideas that come to us about what would make life more wonderful from now on. So that's all of NVC in 3 minutes or less. So here's a quote from Marshall Rosenberg, and I'm going to put this into the chat too, which is, and then I'll read it to you. Let me just copy it first. In nonviolent communication, no matter what words others may use to express themselves, we simply listen for their observations, feelings, needs, and requests. Then we may wish to reflect back, paraphrasing what we have understood. We stay with empathy, allowing others the opportunity to fully express themselves before we turn our attention to solutions or requests for relief. I'll just leave that on the screen and let you take it in for a moment. I want to just pause there and see if there's any questions or comments so far before we move into our practice. Okay, not seeing any hands, we'll keep going. So now the intention is empathy. We've decided that there's somebody else that we want to listen to. So now the question that comes up, how? How do we do that? Empathy, although it's our basic nature to be able to empathize because of the way we've been educated, sometimes we may not have the skill that we would like in order to really be fully present in empathy with somebody. So what are the elements of empathy? Luckily, it's only 3 words. And these I got from Marshall. And it's just so wonderful how one of the gifts that I really got from Marshall was brevity. He was better at it than me, but it's really space, presence, and focus. And then if you think about the first letter of each of these words, it's SPF. And SPF is also what's on your sunscreen. If you buy sunscreen and it has English written on the bottle, it'll tell you what the SPF factor, the sun protection factor, is. And so it's a good way to remember that if you want to protect the connection with empathy, focus on the SPF, which is space, presence, and focus. Space simply means let the other person fully make the space for the other person to fully express before we reflect anything back or give them our ideas or anything like that. Our presence is the greatest gift that we can give them. And we support presence by being in right here with them rather than thinking about what we're supposed to say next or trying to plot a solution for the problem that they're giving us or whatever it is. We just stay with them, whatever their feeling and needing. And that's where our focus is. Our focus is on what are we hearing in terms of their observations, feelings, needs, and requests. Okay, any questions with that piece? Or anything that's not clear for anybody?
Jim
Okay, so-
Martin, this is Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's new to me to hear that no matter what someone says, I'm listening for observations, feelings, needs, and requests. And I don't know, I've never thought of how to listen for observations. Like, because they may not be making observations, they may just be making judgments. And it kind of pushes me back to a couple weeks ago, we talked about maybe having a class on like when people are dissatisfied or displeased and are giving a lot of judgments. So first of all, how do you listen for observations and what someone's saying?
Yeah. So right now you have a question about how you do that.
You're observing me have
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I noticed you asked a question. And so my guess is that inside of you, there's this question bubbling that's really alive in you. You really want to know. And the observation is you don't know the answer to this question, so you're willing to ask about it.
You noticed that I didn't understand because I expressed some sense of not understanding or wanting.
Right?
And you just repeat it back to me.
Yes, exactly. So if you think about observations in nonviolent communication, when we use the word observation or observing, we're talking about the five senses. What we hear, what we see, what we smell, taste, or touch. And so if we're empathizing with someone, we can enter into their experience and we can imagine, what does the world look like for them? What does the world sound like to them? What textures might be they feeling with their skin? What might they be tasting in the moment? What might they be smelling? But we're very visual and auditory creatures primarily, so that's where we tend to put most of our observational focus, is on what we hear, what we see. And so an example of connecting to someone's observation would be, let's say that you have a housemate and they come home from work and you say, how'd your day go? And they say, my boss is such a jerk. Okay, well, if I've got my giraffe ears on, I can't hear the judgment, my boss is a jerk. What can I hear instead? Well, I could hear their feeling. What's your guess, Jeff, of what they might be feeling if they say, my boss is such a jerk?
Some frustration, some exhaustion,
Yeah.
confusion, anger.
Right. And what's your guess about their need?
Maybe I would say kindness, but.
Sure, kindness, dignity, maybe acknowledgement of the contribution they'd like to make at work. And so those would be how you could acknowledge their feelings or their needs. Anybody got any guesses of what the observation might be? We don't really know, do we? But because there's not very much detail. So here's how you can get more detail. So you go kind of vague and you say, oh, something happened at work today. That's an observation. Something happened at work today. Oh, your boss said something? Oh, you heard something painful at work? Oh, or maybe you've had previous conversations with your housemate about behaviors at work that they didn't like. So did your boss start talking before you finished your sentence today? So all those would be observations of what the other person's experience might be. Does that help, Jeff?
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll be playing with that some.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
great. Siva?
Um, I've heard you say before that there are 5 senses, but I'd like you to open your imagination to one more sense, and that's the sense of remembering or memory.
Yeah, you don't have to convince me. I would say that there's another whole set of observations that are available to us that are mental and emotional. So we can have a memory that could include something that we saw or heard or smelled or tasted or touched. We could have a fantasy that could become an observation. A vision could be an observation.
But what is also, I think, true is that when I use my visual sense to do something with my capability of seeing, it educates my visual sense through the experience and also improves it or changes it or has an effect on my using it.
Absolutely, I can't argue with that. That we
And
are
makes us more and more skillful at
abs-
our main job of figuring out who the hell am I?
Yeah, I can't argue with that, Siva. Amen.
Okay.
Yeah, there actually
I'm
is
not looking for an argument. I'm just looking
I-
for a confirmation.
I confirm. And
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
there is a sixth sense that has been talked about, which is called interoception. Like right now, you know where your right foot is.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's interoception. You know where your left ear is. All you have to do is like focus a little attention. And so this relates actually to the second thing that we can pay attention to in nonviolent communication, which is sensation or feeling or emotion. And so, in fact, everything about OFNR is observational. We're observing our what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or think, or remember. We're also noticing what we feel. We're noticing what we value or need. And we're noticing the wish or the request that might be coming up. So here's a practice. Think of a moment when you wanted to be heard. There's something that you really would like to be heard about, and you weren't. Now, don't pick the thing that sends you to therapy for the last few years or whatever. But so think of something that there's a scale of 1 to 10. Pick of something, in the 3, 4, or 5 range. There's something on your mind. You want to be heard, but you weren't heard. And write down the observation. Describe that moment to yourself as best as you can. And I'll be quiet for 2 minutes while you do that. Now put the prompt in the chat.
Can you say it out loud again too, please, Jim?
Sure. Think of a moment when you wanted to be heard. Describe the moment avoiding any evaluation. Just see if you can describe what you saw, heard. About 15 more seconds. If you need more time to write this down, let me know somehow. Make a request. Okay, we'll wait another 30 seconds or so. If you're done, it looks like some people are still writing, some people are done. If you're done, check what you wrote. Put on your NVC editing ears. Look at what you wrote and see if there's any evaluation that got mixed in with your observation. It's okay if it did. It's just circle it or underline it, separate it out. Just keep this evaluation separate from the observation. One example would be I was trying to talk to a friend and they interrupted me. Okay, so that's a really subtle evaluation, but interrupting is a judgment that I'm making. I think it's something they're doing. When something a little more observational might be, I noticed they started speaking before I finished my sentence. Be one way of separating out an observation from an evaluation. See if you can find just descriptive language. Anybody have any questions or need some support with that piece? Okay, so then what did you most want from the listener? There you are, opening your mouth, being vulnerable, maybe sharing something important to you. What did you most want? What was your wish? Janelle?
Sorry, I was so deep in writing. I missed the instruction before, so I think I got describe the moment, make sure there's not any judgment, how I responded, and I feel like there was something in between before you went to what did you most want from the listener.
Yeah, just to separate out any judgment from the observation, just so that you can be clear which is which.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And what did you most want from the listener? If you're willing to put that answer into the chat, that might be fun to read. What did you most want from the listener? To be known, openness, compassion, deep connection. power with, to contribute, to be heard and understood and cared for. A sense of community. Connection, acknowledgement, openness, support, understanding, contribution, consideration. To be seen for my intention. So we're making a really juicy needs list here. Right? These are all, everything that I see here could be understood as a universal human need. To share space and comfort, shared reality. And so I set myself up to get these kinds of answers because I said, what did you most want from the listener? And what we most want is usually related to our needs. And they tend to be, answers to that tend to be in the realm of values and needs. And what did you get instead? That'd be the next question. What did you get instead of these needs being met? Because the question I ask is, when you wanted to be heard, and maybe you didn't get the quality of listening that you would have liked, what did you get instead? Unsolicited advice. An assessment. A judgment. No reply as yet. Comparison. Ignored or forgotten. Some kind of philosophizing or spiritual truths. Someone trying broken record assertiveness technique. Yeah. Shut down, miserable, diminished, small. Anger. Okay. That's painful to read that list and be like underestimation. That would be a list of things that you would want to include in a textbook in how not to listen, right? Told maybe later. My judgment is that I was put off. Look at how Jeff clarified the distinction between his observation and the evaluation. That's what I'm talking about. Being told or hearing maybe later would be what Jeff's actual observational experience was, and then he had a judgment about that he was put off. So if you notice that you mixed in a little judgment with your observation of what happened instead, you can clean that up for yourself if you'd like to. I'll be quiet while you look at what you wrote and see if you can get practice making that even more observational than it already is, if you'd like. So I'm going to use a golden oldie. A golden oldie is a concept that I learned from Marshall, which is a memory, like Siva was talking about, the power of memory. Memory is a great place to find things to practice when you're an NVC practitioner. It's often safer to work with memory than what's actually alive because there's some distance. So it can be a powerful tool for your practice. So this is long before nonviolent communication. This is in my youth. So I'm maybe 22, 23 years old. And I got my heart broken by, so there's a judgment, huh? So, but I'm only 20. I can think in terms of judgments. I'm only 20. I don't know any NVC, but this girl broke my heart. You know, I was dating a girl in college, and she broke up with me. She told me, the observation was, I was dating a girl in college, and she told me she didn't want to date me anymore. And so I went to a friend, and I was bereft. I was so sad. And so I shared my pain with my friend about my broken heart. And what I heard from my friend, who I know was doing the best they could to be a good friend to me, but what they said was, well, she didn't deserve you. There'll be another girl that'll be even better for you, or something like that. Right? And so, so now that I've got some hindsight, what would I have liked to have heard from my friend? I would love for my friend to say, it must be so shocking for you to have had her say this to you. It must have been so shocking for you to have her say that to you. So now you write down what you wish specifically the other person would say. It's as if you're a screenwriter or writing a play, and this is the scene. What you know what your line is? Now write their line. Just one sentence or two. What would have met your needs in that moment? Let me know if you need more time for this to write the next. You don't have to write the whole dialogue, just the next line in the dialogue. You share your pain. What's the best thing in your mind that would really meet your needs to hear? So who would be willing to practice with me and have it recorded? This is a vulnerable request that I'm making, but here's what the practice is going to be. is you're gonna tell me just a little piece of your pain. You don't have to go through the whole story, but you're gonna, before you do that, you're gonna tell me what my line is. And so you're gonna say a little bit of your story. I'm gonna deliver the line that you wanted to hear instead of what actually happened. And then I'll demonstrate the rest of the exercise. Anybody willing to practice? Yeah, Janelle. What's my line?
Yeah, I'm gonna post it to you, message
Okay.
it to you.
Okay. Great. So now I'm going to ask Janelle to say her line. I'm going to respond, and then I'm going to be quiet for about 3 seconds while she takes it in. Then Janelle's going to repeat her line again. And I'm going to say my line again. And I'm going to wait about 5 seconds and let her register it and take it in. And then she's going to do it a third time. And I'm going to give the exact same line again for the third time and let her take it in. And then we'll see what happens for Janelle and for me. So whenever you're ready, Janelle.
Sorry, do I give you just a little bit of background and what I said prior to this line?
Yeah, just a teeny tiny bit. Yeah.
So I was on a phone call with my best friends. They called to see if I was okay because I'd been quiet at dinner. And I said, I felt really overwhelmed with the conversation. People had been speaking loudly and talking over one another. And I tried to ask questions to get connected into the conversation, but the conversation really quickly went back to a level of intensity that I just couldn't connect with.
Okay, great. So just give me the line, the last piece of it, the last sentence of your story, and then I'll give you my line.
I tried to ask questions to get connected, but the conversation went back to a level of intensity that I found disconnecting.
Yeah, I really hear that you were feeling overwhelmed by the conversation and you were wanting connection. Then again.
I tried to ask questions to get connected into the conversation, but it quickly went back to a level of intensity that I couldn't connect to.
Yeah, I really hear that you were feeling overwhelmed by that conversation and you were really wanting connection. And whenever you're ready for the third round.
I tried to ask questions to get connected into the conversation, but it went back to a level of intensity that I found really disconnecting.
Yeah, I really get that you were feeling overwhelmed. You were just really just wanting some connection. What did you notice, Janelle? What are you noticing right now?
This overwhelming urge to cry.
Yeah, it's very touching to be met, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, there was like this tingling sensation
Yeah.
all the way from the top of my head through my body, like as I was sitting with it, and just this kind of urge to sit up straighter.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to say about it?
Felt, yeah, resolved.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to make groups of 2. so that everybody has the chance to practice what Janelle and I just demonstrated. So it'll take me just a minute to reorganize things. And yeah, Juliana.
So Jim, I noticed that you made a statement like you said, I notice you're feeling overwhelmed and needing some connection. Normally, I have heard say that ask a question. What is in your opinion a better way? Like, are you feeling overwhelmed and longing for some connection?
Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard that too. And in this exercise,
Yes.
you guys didn't see it, so I put it into the chat now. She gave me the line. She told me what she wanted to hear. So I did my best just to say what she wanted to hear. So I let her be the writer in this case. Although the last round, I did change it to slightly, I made it slightly shorter. That was my intuition. But the idea was that the other thing that I noticed by doing it 3 times, this is a coaching thing for myself, and I'll coach you too all, is that I noticed the first time, it felt a little flat to me, a little bit mechanical. So while she was doing her 5 seconds of registering it, I registered that. And I said, can you come up with some more warmth, Jim? Can you just be a little warmer and connected? So my second round, I experienced it as warmer. And the third round, even warmer. So it was like, it was really helping me by doing my own 0 step and then just using her line. Does that clarify for you, Juliana?
Yeah. Otherwise, would you have possibly put up a question?
A question. Maybe, but I don't have a rule about it. But we can talk about that during the debrief. I would say just whatever the person asks you to say. If it ends with a period, end it in a period. If it ends in a question mark, end it in a question mark. If it ends in an exclamation point, end it in an exclamation point.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Yeah. Okay, and Xuan?
Thank you, Jim. Actually, your answer just kind of a part of my questions, because I was wondering what's the difference between these 3 responses. Because by what I observed, the first response is more like electroguessing. And the second and third is more like empathy sensing. So I just wondering what's the nuance between third and a second, because they both feel quite empathy connected, especially the second one to me is feel even more. So yeah, I was expecting the third is even more connected than second.
I think it was a natural consequence of me getting more connected to Janelle, that I was much more awake to her needs. And so it awakened my compassion, and it was just a natural process.
So there's no difference between second and third. It's just kind of wording.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to do anything. And I didn't even intend to try it when I first started the exercise. I just noticed that it seemed a little flat to me. That was my judgment. And then I could have been a little warmer. And since I really want to convey warmth when I'm in empathy, then I just ramped up my warmth. Yeah. Okay, so I have pairs for everybody. And because it worked out an even number, Don and Beth, I hope you are okay just doing the exercise with yourself, because you're there together. If you're not, let me know, and I can change something. So we're going to do this again for 15 minutes. So I'll send a message halfway through so that you can make sure that both people get a chance. The idea would it be that, again, that one person says a little bit of the story, just a teeny tiny bit, tells you what your line is, they deliver their pain, you give them your line, and you then give a little bit of space for them to take it in. and repeat that 2 more times, and then debrief it slightly, just very briefly, then switch. Then if there's time at the end, you can debrief it more fully. Anybody got any, Monica?
Okay, so I just needed some clarity. So, is this what we actually said? Or is it our judgment? Is it an observation? Is it exact words that came out of our mouth? That's
No,
my question.
what you're doing when you're the speaker is you're saying what you said in the moment when you wanted to be heard.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And then when you're the listener, you're saying what the person wanted you, would have wished would have happened for them. Okay?
Yes, thank you. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, here you go. See you in 15. Okay. So let's take 2 minutes just to jot down a note to yourself. The question is, what are you taking away from the practice? What are you taking away from this practice? Feel free to keep writing because your insight is important. But if there's anybody who wants to share what you're taking away, you can put it into the chat, or you can raise your hand like Monica did. Monica?
Okay, so I'm just going to be honest. At first, I thought saying this 3 times is not going to be a big deal. It's not going to change me. And I was pleasantly surprised that it softened me and felt a little tears maybe wanting to escape. So thank you. It was a pleasant surprise that it softened me.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. Yeah, you're welcome. Rob.
Yeah, well, my situation was just with a guy friend. He talked about a woman he's dating throwing coffee in his face, and I'm like, "How did you feel?" And he would talk about philosophy all of a sudden, and so I guess I'm feeling some acceptance that he's just really not in a place to be vulnerable and feel his inner feelings, and so just trying to go with that acceptance and acceptance as how he is.
Yeah, just really awakened acceptance for and an open heart, just to be with him. Just
Yeah,
as,
open heart.
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Is that complete, Rob?
Yes.
Okay, Jeff.
It's amazing. Mine was very similar to what Rob just said. I didn't like having my words come out of that person's mouth as I was imagining it. I liked better sitting with what they actually said because it seemed honest and truer to where they were, and I appreciated their honesty.
Awakened the appreciation for honesty. And in the chat, someone wrote consideration, imagination towards the people, what the people were going through. Connecting with my needs brought a sense of ease and relief. Got time for some more. If you haven't shared yet and you'd like to say what your takeaway is, what are you taking away, and how will you use this? How can you imagine using this from now on? Cecilia.
Well, I think what I realized is how deep and tender the need to be heard is. And what I'm taking away is noticing that. I mean, I have more familiarity, I think, with what it feels to me when I want that. And because when I get interrupted, I usually get angry. And now I'm like, okay, this is where that is coming from, and scripting a request of how is it that I can ask to be heard, in honoring that need that I have with that tenderness, so the anger doesn't need to overflow.
Oh, how powerful that we can actually ask for what we want. Yeah, specifically. Thank you. That was the takeaway I was hoping for, that you guys would get to see how powerful you are, the power of a request, that you can share your power with other people by giving them the chance to make your life more wonderful. So you can just, if you're not getting what you want in a conversation, then register that, name it, notice it for yourself, and then ask for what you want. Yeah. And the other takeaway that I'm hoping for is that you get to see that when you're on the receiving end, that you can sense what the other person might need in terms of acknowledgement. Do you want to acknowledge their observation? Something happened at work today? Do you want to, or let's go back to mine, where my girlfriend broke up with me. And which is so weird to revisit that after being married to Jory for almost 43 years. So I say, my girl, or somebody says my girlfriend broke up with me. So I could acknowledge the observation by saying, oh, your girlfriend broke up with you. Just to be right with what they said as their observation. Don't have to try to change their words or edit their words. I can just be with them. Or I could acknowledge their feelings. Ouch. Or if I wanted to ask a question, are you feeling hurt? Are you feeling pain? Or maybe I go for the need. Are you really longing for comfort right now? That'd be my guess. I don't know what their need. They'll let me know. That's the joy of asking a question that Juliana was pointing to earlier. You can ask a question, and they can let you know whether you're with them, or you can acknowledge a request, which would be tough with a breakup, at least in the early phases. But you could say, are you wanting, so here's the request. Are you really just wanting to be heard right now? Would you just like to have some space to ventilate? Would you like to be held and cry together? Whatever you sense, they'll let you know. Okay.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to share that I in doing the exercise, I felt some relief. And so to me, it feels like you gave us this new tool for maybe healing some tender wounds.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I want to give credit. I learned this exercise from another certified trainer. Catherine Singer is her name. Catherine started the Korean Center for Nonviolent Communication, which is a really inspiring organization. They now have generated probably 10 to 12 certified trainers in KCNVC, and also they have their own certification system for people who don't speak English as well. I don't know how many trainers they have there, but they're all over Korea. They've really taken NVC into Korean society in a way that probably is deeper than any other place in the world. So thank you, Catherine, for the gifts that you've given me. And she was also my mentor when I was learning to be an assessor, and she's been a friend for many years. So we're almost done for the day. So I want to do just a couple of quick announcements. Joy and I do all these classes in the spirit of compassionate giving and receiving, also known as the gift economy. And we take your gifts and we pay them forward to something. And right now we're collecting money for the healing of Maui. And so you can go to mauifoodbank.org. They're an extremely efficient charity. About 95% of the money that they receive goes directly to food for people. And there's a definite need for money and other things that the food bank can provide for people in Lahaina, Kula, and other places here in Maui. Also, if you want to donate to something other than the food bank, you can follow this other link that I put into the chat, which can give you feedback on nonprofit organizations to make sure that you're giving money to a place that will steward the money and use it in a way that's likely to meet needs. Also, if you wanted to give money directly to the Center for Nonviolent Communication, of course, you're welcome to do that. And if you want to do that, then you could continue giving to the Rusinga School, which is a project that we've been helping here in this practice group. We've raised $4,000 for Rusinga School. So that if you didn't donate there yet, and you want to send them $20 or $200 or $2,000 or $200,000 or whatever would work for you, feel free to do that. If you're not on our mailing list and would like to be, then you can put your name, your email address into the chat, and I'll add it at the end of the call. That's enough announcements for today. It's a little bit after the top of the hour here in Hawaii, bottom of the hour in India. I really enjoyed being with you and sharing this exercise. That's the first time I've ever done it in a practice group online, and I'm really glad that I got a chance to try it with you today. Glad I followed my intuition. Hope it was meaningful for you. We'll be back next week to continue our practice with nonviolent communication. If you want to stick around for after party, we do a little after party at the end. So if you would like to do that, feel free. You'll find yourself in a group of probably a few people in just a couple of minutes if you stick around. And until next time, aloha, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.